Welcome to our Star Trek Picard After Show, Season 3, Episode 4, The No-Win Scenario. Very excited to talk about this. Our returning champion from a few weeks ago, joining myself, is Jason Blair. Jason, thank you for being back here with us. And making her first appearance on any of our Star Trek after shows is Katie Hampton, El Sassy Pants herself. Katie, thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for inviting me on.
Well, that's what happens if you're my friend on social media and you talk about how you like a show that I do a show for, you're almost immediately asked to be a part of that show, and that's basically what happened. So, I want to delve into this episode, but Katie, as this is your first appearance on our show, give me your thoughts on heading into episode 4. You know where you were feeling after the first three, as you were about to sit down to watch episode 4 yesterday. How had you felt so far about this show?
um it completely stoked. This is the season that actually like made me put my phone down and watch because I was like, "Oh, like these are next gen people. These are exciting." But that last episode, the way they left off, I was like, oh my god, is this the death of Picard? Like, I was like, are we just gonna drag this out the entire season? I like, I'm gullible, like, fair enough. I understand like story structure and TV rating and all of
Sure.
that. Like, that wasn't going to happen, but there was like the look that Riker gave Picard when he dismissed him at the end of the last episode. I was like, I don't know where this is gonna go. Like I had no idea what what was gonna happen. I had no idea what was coming next. I had no idea if they were gonna. I mean, the literal episode was called "No Win Scenario," and I was like, "Oh man!" Like we've not gotten this deep into a scenario, especially with these characters, in a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
So
know it, and well, last week we were talking about it. I was talking about it last week with Tom Kelly and David Weiss. That there was a moment where I really thought that last week they were going to kill Jack Crusher, and I was just like, oh my god, what a bold storytelling decision. It's so meaningful, it's so impactful. He's never going to get the chance. And then they're like, nah, he's okay. I was like, they had it called 17 seconds and everything, and
yeah.
then they pull the rug out from under you and go like, nah. So I feel like I've got no sense of stakes the rest of this season. By the way, Craig Robinson checking in from across the pond. I will always shout out Craig Robinson when he stays up late in the UK. And of course, Dominicus Saxon is excited to see both Jason and Katie. So thank you. So yeah, I think that he kind of nailed something from the end of the last episode, Katie. The look on Riker's face when he dismissed Picard. But Jason and I were talking. The issue is really with what he said is
Yes.
you've killed us all. And then I'm like,
That
and
felt like a parent telling me that I disappointed them,
sure.
but deeper.
But then it just like this entire episode is like complete contrast from that. It's almost like, it was like a choose your own adventure, and they're like they chose like, wow, this is really bad. But then it was like, yeah, but actually it's they thought it was a great way to end the episode. And then this episode, it didn't really reflect those feelings from Riker. At least it didn't to me. He's
I
pretty
feel
much
like
right away. He's like, sorry, Jean-Luc. What were you going to say, Kitty?
well, I was just thinking I thought they did continue that just because I mean, we haven't seen Riker in a commanding position over Picard ever. Like that
Right.
we've never
True.
seen Riker rebuke Picard. Like that's a weird thing. Like it's like mommy and daddy fighting for the first time and you don't know
Very
what to
true.
do. And then they get divorced right there in the front deck. But when he goes down to talk to him, he's like he's still grappling with the fact that he's probably going to die, and then he's talking about like, hey, you should probably talk to your son. Like, I know that we're in a
Yeah.
dire situation. I'm still pissed as hell at you, and I don't know what to do with myself. But for you, my biggest advice: go talk to your son you've never met. And I thought that
Right.
was beautiful.
So Jason, that was a bit of an issue for you last week.
Right.
So You had a week to think about it. What were your thoughts there? And then we'll move into talking about episode 4, the No Win
Yeah, I
Scenario.
mean, it's one of those things where it definitely made for some good posts last week, because when you left with the "you've killed us all," it was so unlike Riker that, anything I saw on social media was like, is Riker the changeling? I saw an interesting one that maybe he's Tom Riker. That he's that would explain why Deanna is not in tow. And so there was a lot of theory on that. And then you go into this episode and it's like, no. And he even says, like, Riker says to Picard, like, yeah, you made the right call back there. I should have listened to you. And I'm like, well, that's totally different than the "you killed us all." So then I have questions about the showrunner. Is it, almost like one of those situations where you hand the show off from one writer to the next, and they're just going in a total different direction, pulling the whole Ryan Johnson treatment with Last Jedi, and just, I'm just gonna, crap on whatever came before me.
I don't want to open a can of worms. I don't even know what that is. I don't know who Ryan Johnson is. I don't know any reason why Rise of Skywalker was more watchable. I don't know anything about it. I don't have an opinion.
Right.
I'm in the
But
car in
still,
I'm in the car in Pulp Fiction. Man, I don't even have an opinion.
But shouldn't there be some continuity?
No, there absolutely is.
I
mean,
agree. And
my wife has worked on enough scripted television that there absolutely is.
Right.
But yes, there is a little bit of a disjointed
seemed to slip through the cracks there. And then also too, when you said, "Is Picard going to die?" This is one episode where I thought, if this were like late in the season, not necessarily the final episode or the penultimate episode, I would feel like stakes. Like, are they going to die? I remember, like watching Toy Story 3 when the toys are all going into that incinerator.
Right.
It was so late in the movie, I thought maybe this is how
this is happening.
They're just going to off these toys, and I was freaked out. But I was like, I was watching this being like, this is the 4th episode. They're obviously going to get out of this. And so it didn't have the stakes. I thought it would have been a great episode to have, last episode or next to last episode of the season. So those are a couple things I just think from a production standpoint. Why was this here?
And like in my like technical writing brain, I knew that was the case. I knew that like there's no way they would kill off the title character in the 4th episode. I understood that, but I wasn't sure if we were going to have more flashbacks, more flash sideways. I was like, is this like, we had those portals and I wasn't sure if there was going to be some kind of time dilation type of situation or like different timeline or different universe. I wasn't sure where, like, that was the biggest concern of mine, was like, are they killing off the next gen Picard that I know? And it was the first episode that it felt like, well, not the first episode. I'd say this season is the first season that feels like the closest to next gen that we've had so far, with these characters. So I wasn't sure, like, and agreed. I think there might be some kind of different writing teams because we have a little bit more of the season 1, season 2 in the last couple episodes, like mixed, like some of those storylines mixed in. But this episode felt full on next gen. And one of the things that I said to a friend,
there's no Raffi, so that's
what I was going to say.
The
observation is,
but the problem with no Raffi is now I want Worf. So it's like, you want the Raffi scene. I don't want Raffi, but I want Worf.
I will take that trade-off. I will take. Yeah, we got to see Worf once. If we never see him again, because it means they just abandoned the Raffi storyline, I'm going to be okay with it. So I would love to see more Worf. But if that's the vig, I'm going to pay it.
It was interesting, though, you talked about the flashbacks. Like, yeah, if they did just kill them in the 4th episode, and then the rest of the season would be like the final season of Lost, where it's all like they're in purgatory, and it's just like these alternate universes with flashbacks. That would have been ridiculous.
But that's why I like that scenario was like the only thing I was thinking it could go towards, because I was just like, they really have fucked themselves over with this entire like situation. And I was like, they haven't in the last 2 seasons done a science problem with a science solution. And this was the first episode they figured out a science solution, much like a next gen episode or a Strange New Worlds episode. Like, they finally figured they figured a way out by working together, which I thought was a beautiful motif.
Star Trek:
I
The
didn't
Next
think they would go there.
Generation, you always want those episodes where Data or somebody's like pulling those chips out and realigning stuff, which is what the captain was doing basically in this episode. So
Yeah.
Oh,
Craig Robinson, I did appreciate just having one A story.
Yes.
Yeah. And look, the fact that when I brought that comment up, the background behind me now shows Raffi makes me wonder if I want to bring up any more comments the rest of
maybe
the
no
show.
more comments.
That might be the last one.
One
Listen,
other discussion on production is the previously on Picard, where you start with it. Do you think the showrunners pay attention to that? Because one thing they totally gave away was how they were going to find the changeling, because they included that scene where LaForge's daughter says, "Hey, Commander Seven." And then when she came in, you're like, that's how she's going to solve it. So
I think it's for the more or less nuanced audience that doesn't remember those different details.
You're talking about stupid people, aren't you? You're talking about
I'm talking about general audiences that don't like nitpick and pick out all the different plot points and like the production notes that we do.
There was no point to put that in the previously on unless it was going to be a key plot point for this episode. And so
I will say it gave it
a little bit of a spoiler.
Well, I'll always talk about the production standpoint is when a previously on features a character that you haven't seen in a while. 10 times out of 10, that character's in the episode because you have to pay them to use their likeness in an episode. If they're already appearing in the episode, it's all wrapped up, but you're not doing an extra payment just to have them in the previously on. So yes, the previously ons can definitely mess things up. And there was no Raffi in the previously on. So we all should have been happy at that moment. Dominicus Saxon highlights something that my friend Tom Kelly can't be with us today because of timing, scheduling, or whatever. Right. This is the thing that he texted me about what Dominicus Saxon says. When Picard mentioned that the holodeck has its independent power source, I thought they were going to siphon off to get out of there. No, that's for what Katie's talking about. The minutia of the Star Trek fan who needs everything tidied up nicely because we're getting rid of all essential functions on the ship.
Right, but
except for the holodeck.
I know.
I mean, it's like that's like we shut down life support, but the ice maker still works.
Right. Well, I was thinking the same thing.
Pouring drinks. Well, and I feel like it's nice that they address those different things because especially when Jack Crusher came on with a British accent, I was like, what? And then they finally explained he went to school and just picked it up and hasn't put it down. I was like, nah, that dude's British and that's not hereditary.
No, there's a reason why Star Trek is the only reboot that they had to take the time in the J.J. Abrams movies. Don't worry, this is new. But everything from before still happened. We're not shaking an Etch-a-Sketch to 50 years of Star Trek.
Am I also the only person when they say, what are you, 22, 23? He looks like he's 10 years older than Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future, who was like 28 at the time. So,
no, the comparison I usually use is Ian Ziering, season 1 of 90210. It's, he's got a receding hairline. He's got crow's feet. And you're like, wait, this guy's a high school sophomore? Okay.
Yeah, there are some stretches. I will grant them that, but overall, like I there was so much of that in the first 2 seasons, in my opinion, of just like those. I'm like, I can forgive those now because we like actually have like good story and like those things. I'm like, yeah, it's annoying that like the holodeck is working and I don't know. Are we going to do like a Sherlock Holmes episode of this?
Well, yeah. Well, I think that's to come. But in any case, I think that you had to address it because there was no reason for it. Also, it's like they didn't have to go to the holodeck. It was just like, hey, you want to get a drink? Yeah. It's really about that.
And do hollow force fields get you drunk? I mean, there's hollow Jameson.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
mean, are they like Data and Tasha Yar? Are they fully functional? You know, I mean, these
Right.
are important questions that
Or do
we
they
should
get
ask.
you really drunk, but as soon as you walk out of the holodeck,
It
all
just
the
leaves.
alcohol just leaves your body and you're just stone
Right.
sober?
That's probably what
I would
happens.
imagine it's something like the synthetic alcohol that they serve in 10 Forward or something.
Oh yeah. You know what? I think you're absolutely right. So yeah, I think that you needed to address that. It was interesting. I think that they gave us the explanation for basically why the Shrike just let them fall into the gravity well. And I thought that that was happening because someone else is about to come in and where we're going to get further along in the story of who's behind everything, or who are they now vulnerable for.
Is her
And
hand a changeling, or is
well, I
it
think
just some
she's
sort of?
she
I think this is like a new form of changeling,
well, I
right?
think she's a changeling, and the fact that she smokes the clove cigarettes is already a theory as to who she is. So people feel like they know who she is.
Okay,
So
so I didn't go very far in Voyager. I was all next
well, that's
gen.
the changelings are really Deep Space
Deep
Nine,
Space
and
Nine,
Decent.
yeah.
Okay.
and yeah, and the last couple seasons of Deep Space Nine were probably the last time Star Trek on television was really good. But
Okay.
you know, they're all still there. But yeah, so it's I think they're doing a good job of explaining the changelings. You clearly this is for fans of Next
I
Generation.
will say
You don't
this:
have to be well versed in DS9 as well. What were you going to say, Jason?
Odo is one character that you could actually CGI like Moff Tarkin and actually make it look okay, because Odo has no real facial features. If
Yeah,
they need
but
to bring him back.
but probably out of respect to Rene Auberjonois, they decided to not bring the character. But who knows? Maybe we'll see him at some point.
Maybe.
But yeah, I think that so to that question, I think she is some form of a changeling. Just that thing, putting her hand in there, that was basically one to let us know, but also that must be how they communicate with, I don't know,
Part
the
of their
grand
body.
leader. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. But
That felt, and I know that we've kind of ended like the whole Borg storylines and things like that, though we did get a little bit more from Stashwick later in the episode, just referring back to Picard. But it felt very Borg like in that like you communicate with like the head changeling, I'm assuming,
right.
but like via your own like biochemistry or something. I found that kind of interesting and like a little bit like less tech Borg, but like more bio Borg.
Well, that was the great link in Deep Space Nine. They
Right.
talked about in the Dominion War, where they were all kind of at one, even though they did retain some individuality. But when in Deep Space Nine, they go to the home planet, it's like a big lake, and they just
Yeah.
all are just a big intertwined
Blob.
goo. So
Yeah.
Yeah, basically all life started in Lake George, in upstate New York, and then it revolves around there. So yeah, I think that the fact that they needed to get away from the distortion to communicate or something, I guess, and then it's like time to pursue, and she's like, no, I really don't want to do that, and it's like, yeah, because she's just like, yeah, I got, and so then the big, I don't know, temporal displacement weapon conveniently gets kicked off into space. No chance that comes back in any future episode, right? There's no like, so I'm going to leave this here. Now I'm going to go back in, but nobody go look for that. Nobody try to find that. Okay.
I just got to respond to Dominica Saxon. I also
Which one?
cannot,
wait. Which one?
I cannot respond without my Opal Nugget Ice Maker either. It's the best thing I've ever bought. So
I don't even see that.
he has a
So-
comment
It's
about the
second to
Nugget Ice
last.
Maker.
Is
Yeah.
it this one? Or,
No,
no.
There you
Mrs.
go.
Saxon would say her
Yes,
Opal Nugget Ice Maker.
I
Yeah,
love
well,
the
that's fair.
Opal Nugget Ice Maker.
That's fair.
Anyway,
Okay.
go ahead.
And Farad Muhammad's comment, I think Rene Auberjonois' son is an actor. If he could do an indecent impression of his father and recreate those
Ooh.
features, that could work. The little references to him are good enough for me. I agree. And good to see Farad Muhammad in here. I had lunch with him yesterday. Jealous?
Yes.
So we went to Shake Shack anyway.
Now I'm really
I
jealous.
know the Shake Shack in Austin's like the far side of the city from me. I don't get to
Right.
go there very much. So
Well, see,
I'm
there you
preparing
go.
for a wedding. I want a shake right now in a burger.
I could eat a whole shack.
I could.
So yeah, I think that they did a good job of addressing like, wait, so the strike isn't going to finish off this ship. Okay, that's fine. But I think that this is an episode where it didn't quite deliver what I was saying episodes 1 and 2, but I think that they're working on basically the redemption arc for Captain Shaw, because I tweeted showrunner Terry Matalas this last night. I was like, I'm ready for Star Trek dipshit from Chicago. Just let me know when it's going to start streaming, because I'll be there for it.
Hell yeah.
And they could
by
get
the
some
way-
Portillos on the holodeck, so it'll be great.
Portillos, yeah,
Portillos, that's perfect.
that would be perfect. But it's interesting because like his story of like, I was there with when you were Locutus of Borg.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is good. This is really impactful. But he plagiarized it from Ben Sisko's story. Because in the Deep Space Nine pilot, we find out that when his wife died on an attack from Locutus.
But there's got to be more than one guy.
Oh,
than
of
just
course.
Ben Sisko.
There's got to be one more. But
The idea
it
that episode.
made sense though. That
There's
Stashig was such a
thousands
dick.
and millions. It's fine. It also explains why he always referred to Seven as Hansen. But from a storytelling standpoint, so like in the universe, of course, there's thousands, millions of people impacted by his tenure as Locutus. However, from creating a show story, it's like, yeah, I've heard this before, but it was a great moment, and he
delivered really well.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, exactly. So, I'm all in on Captain Shaw. Talk a little bit about that, Katie.
I was so impressed by that because apparently I know a lot of people who know this actor, and they're like, he's the sweetest guy. He's very.
He was
funny.
on 12 Monkeys. Yeah.
Yeah, and I hadn't seen 12 Monkeys. I heard that show was amazing.
Yes.
Love the movie, but yeah, no, I like when this guy comes up and like he starts talking about how reckless Picard and Riker were, and I was like, wow, oh, this is a new perspective I've like never seen before. Like having like professional respect for these two, but also being like, you guys fucked up major. And I was like, wow, I've never seen someone like respond to Picard or Riker this way. Like this is such an interesting take. And like the douchier he got and like the further he got, and just like, fine, you take the helm, whatever. This scene made so much sense for his entire character that I'm very excited, because after they thought they were all going to die, he was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to tell you everything I think about you guys and like why I hate you all. Let's get it out on the table. But now they're alive. Spoilers. Sorry.
Well, these are all spoilers. We're assuming you've watched the episode.
Yeah.
If you're watching this, it's fine. Yeah.
But like now I'm excited to see what that relationship looks like. Now that, I mean, apparently he was on like pain meds and drinking a hefty glass of wine, which I was like, okay, you know what? You're at the end of your life. I get it. But
yeah.
Also, what does that mean as you as a person? So I'm excited.
That just means he wants to go the way we all do, doing what we love, pain meds and liquor. I mean, that's
well,
that's a great
wine,
way to do
but
yeah, to each his own.
Or
I'd
if
probably
he's from
take
Chicago, Malort. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Right. Well, yeah, he could have had a couple of old style tall boys if he's really the Chicago guy. The dipshit
right? Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that they had some really nice moments. I thought he and Seven, where he's kind of explaining changelings and how to catch them, it was also good foreshadowing for a little bit later. I thought him getting down and dirty, being the grease monkey, I'm like, this is kind of what we're talking about. What I was talking about at the beginning of the season. I'm like, don't worry, they're not going to let you hate this guy throughout the whole run of the season.
And I'm glad.
And there's still time. There's still time for him to, sacrifice himself tragically. I mean,
I also don't. It's one of those things with Star Trek with the changelings, though, is like, a regular tricorder scan wouldn't show you that they're a changeling. Like they've actually got the bones and the internal organs that they make so that, I'm thinking
think,
about it too much. But
no, I think
No.
it's probably like how long, how old is this changeling? How much experience do they have? Because yes, probably they've also, they've probably got the equivalent of like a YouTube do-it-yourself video, how to avoid tricorder detection. So I think that especially if you're going to be a double agent on a Federation vessel, you're going to need to know how to do that. So yeah, I thought that we got some really good stuff from him.
Better effects with the changelings now. Like when he turned in the goop, it's all kind of fleshy and there's like a blood.
Yeah, it's gross.
It used to just be like a really crappy Terminator 2 liquid look.
Alex Mack. Yeah. Well, and that was the one thing that I was wondering is like, have the changelings evolved from my understanding, it's just they're sort of goopy, whatever. But like, if you get shot in the heart, does it affect you as though you were a human and like you die, or is it like what's her name cutting off her hand and like it just turns into the head of
I think it's more generalized damage. It's just the idea that the phaser energy just melts,
dissipates,
basically dispersed everything.
Okay.
While we're talking about changelings, William Walton in the chat, given how big a part of the season the changelings are, do you think we could be working with the Jem'Hadar again? Absolutely. Could we get some Deep Space Nine cameos? And down below, Farad Muhammad said, if they could somehow convince Avery Brooks to come back, I would be flabbergasted. I think there's a 0% chance of that happening when I think I've referenced the documentary or whatever it was that Shatner did, where basically he talked to all the captains. It looks like, reining in Avery Brooks might be a tall order at this point. I would love to see him, but I know that Jason went to UCLA with young Jake Sisko, so you could send him. You could send Sirach Lofton a message and be like, "Hey, you in this?"
He'd probably be down.
Yeah, exactly. He'd be happy to tell you. So I don't know. I'm not quite sure what we're gonna get to see. And Dominicus Saxon thinks they'll cut down on the cameos from the other series so they can focus on the command crew getting the swan song. I just think there's been so much talk about Janeway. I would be surprised if we don't see her, even if it's just like on a screen or something. Like they've mentioned her so many times this season and in previous seasons.
Everyone's clamoring for Neelix, but
right.
Jason mentioning that because he knows that might be that before this series, that was my least favorite character in all of Star Trek. And now it's really just a toss up for
Raffi,
Dr. Girardi, Raffi. There's so many, I can't even, it's like supermarket sweep, all the characters that I don't like that I can try and put them in one.
Put them in one. They'll put them in one episode just for you.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Katie?
I was gonna say, I also have the same qualms with the character of Raffi. I'm sure that actress is much better given better dialogue.
Her name's Michelle Hurd. I've seen her in other things. It is not a matter of her performance. Didn't
she work on your old shows?
She was season 1 Law and Order SVU. But only season 1. So
it every time she comes up on screen, and like the first season, that was the reason why I was just like, I'm over this. I didn't even really watch season 2 of Picard because I was just like, it's just so campy. Like the storylines, I'm like, we're doing, like, I get the themes of addiction is like a heavy thing, and it's really great and interesting, especially when you're working with somebody who's going back to Starfleet essentially. But anytime they brought her up in this current season, I was like, I think you're wonderful. But I need you to sit back.
Right. Because we're not here for the final season of Picard. We're here for the last hurrah of the Next Generation. That's we really don't care. We don't need to see Elnor. There's a lot of characters we don't need to see from anything that came before. And Craig is, of course, talking about how they're going to have all the greats back and not give us Reg. Dwight Schultz from Next Generation. Absolutely. So I thought that I think that really the moments with Shaw kind of really, I thought, shown through in this episode. I thought watching Picard, hold court and tell stories while his lunch got cold
I know.
was
It
an
was
interesting.
fish too.
Yeah, I know. It's an interesting device. He's like, I'm not usually one for stories. I'm like, wait, what?
Bullshit.
Oh, okay, yeah. And then he continued to tell stories. It was
And then, he had a whole episode about the walls fell and Dharma. The whole episode is stories. So
yeah. The plot device, the moment where the reveal to us that Jack was there and that he asked him a question, and then Picard remembers and puts it together. I think it's good for dramatic storytelling. It was definitely like a little bit of a gut punch, but you're also like, so now he remembers him.
There's no way you would remember some random name from 5 years ago. I mean, I barely remember my next door neighbors when they're walking their dogs out here.
Of course not. But like, think about like Picard not knowing he had a son, like Picard not knowing that this, interaction with Beverly was anything. Like he's sitting here telling these war stories to Starfleet, and they're getting excited, and then like he has some asshole at a bar just being like, well, why didn't you ever like start a family outside of this? And going with the theme of what he's talking about in all these war stories, he's like, Starfleet's my family. That makes sense. But like, to have the realization I had a son the whole time and like I could have been there for him and been part of that life, that's a great death and loss. And like in that moment just of Picard's character, that he's always been this upstanding guy, he's always been the hero, he's always been like the number one of the story, but in Jack's life he is the jackass. you know
right,
and
absolutely.
But he tried doing that. Like he tried to connect with his father, but he didn't know how, as any kid, which also agreed with the whole age thing. 22, 23. I was like, he's like 33, 34. But and especially him and his like Marvel incognito superhero outfit.
Yeah, because 5 years ago he would have been like 16, and that he was not sitting there like late teens at a bar.
At a bar, hammering back at Jameson.
Look, all they need to do is say that he got trapped in a pattern buffer in a transporter for like 6 years. Just explain it away. It's like, wait, you're only 24? Well, funny thing about that. But finish your thought, Katie. Yeah, right. Well, clearly. I want to let you finish your thought before I bring up this comment from the chat.
I was just say, like, it's got to be soul crushing to realize that essentially he has another Borg moment where he was the one that caused all this pain and this hurt,
right?
But he didn't even know it. And I find that a really fascinating storyline for Jean-Luc himself, and for continuing the relationship with his son. Like that look at the end of that episode gave me goosebumps, whereas the look between Riker and Picard like made me like depressed. So I'm just excited to see where this relationship goes, how they learn about each other, and how they
exactly. And I think that as much as the dramatic moment would have been kind of an all-time moment if Jack had died last week, the fact that we still have the two of them, we'll kind of see where it goes. Stressed Free K in the chat. I believe my theory of Gumby being a precursor for the changelings is catching on, especially with all the goo talk, which happens to be Gumby's girlfriend, given the pokey red. Clearly, Gumby was the original changeling. And Stress Free K, that is why we like to have people in the chat. And I bring up the comments as often as I can, even when it does put Rafi on the screen, because I wanted to make sure. And Farad Muhammad does point out, if you look at the beginning of the flashback, at the start of the episode, you can see Jack in the background looking at Picard over his shoulder, which is very sneaky, which is fine. But just the sort of the timing in the story, it's like, well, now in this linear moment of the storytelling, now you remember that, hey, wait a minute, you had a hat on, So it's all right though. I think that moment was well done. I think that you got some nice moments, and there was one that with very little fanfare, where Beverly was happy to excuse herself and let Jean-Luc and Jack, have some time together. You could see it in her face. She's like, oh, good. Especially because they thought they were all going to die at that point, And I agree. The sciencey part, the Star Trekky part of this, which is it always seems so simple, and it's like, what you got to do is basically open the vents and ride that explosion, and then the
Like a
ship will work
surfboard.
again. And like, yeah, that's a very Star Trek explanation. Sure, you know what? Let's just run with it. It's a little bit lacking on the science. That's a little bit more Star Warsy than Star Trekky, but we're gonna go ahead and allow it anyway because it was kind of cool. And glad it reset the holodeck because I think they had run out of ice there.
I was expecting the baby to be. Remember, there was an episode of The Next Generation, it was like a big potato in space that had like a baby. I don't remember what episode. It looked like a big potato, and it spun around. And
was that like the first 2 episodes where they had the like space whales or whatever?
It wasn't Farpoint, but it was.
But they referenced Farpoint in here.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But I was thinking it was going to be that thing instead of like jellyfish, But whatever.
Yeah. The jellyfish with the like very cute, very baby like faces.
But those do look more Farpointy because if you remember, the Farpoint station came up and they had tentacles and they touched and it looked more like jellyfish. So maybe these are babies of.
Let's not dwell on Farpoint. I'm just mad that Q didn't wear that hat often enough. Not that he never wore it again, but it was nowhere near enough that we should have gotten it. I think that we've already referenced sort of the moment when the changeling comes for one last act of sabotage. So the changeling knows enough to say, well, Geordi LaForge is my father, and that's enough for Shaw. He's like, yeah, right, checks out. Even though it doesn't make any sense that you would be down here in that moment. I don't. I'm going to assume neither of you were fooled in thinking that was.
I wasn't, but I did think it would have been funny. Not funny, but if Seven actually did just kill Geordi's daughter.
I did think that.
Plot twist.
And then she was like.
And then Geordi comes hunting down Seven, and that's like how he gets introduced into the show.
That's next episode. Yeah. But Captain Seven, or sorry, Commander Seven. Which, yes, we definitely had the tell from the previously on. But again, you can try to look at moments in a vacuum sometimes. And I think that, the two of them working together, I thought was nice. And I don't know. I'm telling you something about Shaw. He called himself a dipshit from Chicago, and then Jean-Luc called him a dipshit from Chicago. So yeah,
it's weird seeing Picard cuss so much. Like it feels
wrong. They try a little hard on this show, I
know. I know. But like that dipshit from Chicago moment was actually.
And he also said 10 fucking hours in the
he
same
said 10
episode.
fucking hours, and I was like, oh, like, I mean, I get it because like he's at the end of his life.
It doesn't belong in Star Trek. It's just
weird.
It's weird. It's a lot. I mean, they did it once or twice in Discovery, but
the first time that Tilly cursed on Star Trek, it was like, oh, but really why?
Weird. Yeah,
because I think she said this is a big fucking deal. I think I'm thinking of Joe Biden, but either way, she like swore in the early episodes, and it was like in a way where like that doesn't fit at all. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. Look, I think there's probably lots of corners of the world where they don't see the episodes this way. It's more like, hey, Paramount Plus or CBS All Access, look how edgy we are.
Understandably, and I get why they have to. I mean, not have to do it, but I get that like it feels more modern of a show, like it grew up with us type of thing. And I get that, but it did feel fucking earned when he called him a dipshit. But the thing that
by the way, Farad Muhammad says that he heard somewhere that Picard's F-bomb was an improv from Sir Patrick Stewart. I think that makes it more allowable. If Sir Pat Stew decided that he would say it there, but I just wanted to bring that in.
If there's an F-bomb in Strange New Worlds, something's going on. That would not fit at all in Strange New Worlds. They need to keep that show
as is. As is. That show is fantastic. Well,
sorry. Finish your thought though, Katie. Yeah.
The Captain Shaw, the moment that like turned me into like this, I feel like I really saw his personality was when he was working with Seven to figure out what the thing is with the changelings, and he was like, well, you would just have to do this, and you would have to like he actually like it felt like the meds kind of went away, the alcohol went away, and he was like, no, this is actually a very interesting like thing that I would like to solve.
Mhm.
And like you saw a little bit of that interest, and then he just goes back to whatever.
Well, I love it that they introduced. They said that he was a chief engineer before he became which is not the standard. He wasn't in command. He was in the Yellows, and that also explains why he is more a by the book guy. He doesn't just jump off the deep end like Riker and Picard. You sort of you follow the flow chart, and so I think that gave a lot of insight to his character that he.
It's a great point. It's why it was important to him that, like, look at my ship. It's not damaged like yours always were. And by the way, now it's, now it looks
got some scuffs.
Now it looks like Biff Tannen's car in Back to the Future. So, it's gone through the ringer a couple of times. But I think that we've gotten a lot of good insight about him. And look, no matter what happens to the character in these remaining, 6 episodes, whether they ever use him again, somebody's already halfway through writing their Captain Shaw novel. They're fully, I'm not talking fan fiction, they're fully licensed Captain Shaw novel. So I think that they're definitely building up a nice story. I thought that a nice moment for Riker was just his inability to record that message to Deanna where he has to say, like, because I don't know. I mean, I'm like, oh yeah, I can't imagine trying to,
say something.
It's like when you have the time to do that, like when not to be too much of a bummer, but when you hear like real life, people who like called and left messages on 9/11, they really just like, I just want you to know I love you. When it's that, yeah, of course it's easy to do, but he had the time. He's like, I can really try to fix this and make sure that everything's, but it's like, where do I start? And so I was glad that they were talking at the end, and but boy, I hope they find an excuse to actually bring her into the action, so
same.
I'm sure they will. Yeah, I'm sure they will. But I thought that those were 2 really good moments for Riker. And again, it all makes the end of the last episode just really feel out of place, but that's just me. But I thought that we really, this was a great one. And, again, to bring in, to invoke the name of my pal, Tom Kelly, the fact that he didn't like this episode, I'm like, all right, I think you don't like Star Trek. You don't like new Star Trek. Obviously you love old Star Trek, but I don't know. I couldn't wrap my head around not enjoying this. This was some of the best storytelling they've done in a very long time. I think in all of the streaming series, and people who know me know how I feel about both Voyager and Enterprise. So really, this is like going back to DS9. It's just like feeling this good about an hour. And, it's like, it just makes me wonder what could possibly be next. And
that's the exciting part.
Where do you think we're going, Jason? I'll ask you first.
Well, what they should be doing is going back to space dock to get the ship fixed, but that won't happen. They're just going to say whatever that energy they, now they can just, go to the beta quadrant and solve this stuff, which is just
right.
Stupid, because what they would need to do is get the ship fixed. But I will say, I think that, we've got Worf, and I know you want to cram everybody in, but I kind of thought we would have another person in the mix.
This
already.
one,
we're going to be halfway through the season next week, and we haven't seen Geordi. We've seen his daughter, we've heard his name, but we have not seen. And then
we're still
Geordi.
Supposed to have Moriarty. We're supposed to have Lore.
Right. That was my fear. I thought they were going to bring Moriarty in while they were in the holodeck, and I was like, "Come on, please don't." I was glad they didn't do that.
I agree with that. Yeah.
So that's the issue with me with Picard. All 3 seasons, I liked them more than you did, Christian. But the first 2 seasons, the problem was pacing. They would start out pretty good. The first 2 episodes of each season, I was like, this is promising. And then it was just filler, end. And we got to cram everything into the end instead of making it pace. So I'm just a little, I'm always hesitant with Picard on that. So
That's fair. What are you thinking, Katie, in terms of where you think we could go, where you'd like them to go over these this next month and change?
Well, I agree with Jason. I want them to go to a space dock and repair that ship, but I have a feeling we're kind of another Back to the Future reference. We've gotten the lightning bolt and we can go and do whatever we want. We're supercharged now. Which doesn't explain a lot of things, especially like the damage and the repairs and all that. But that's aside from it. I'm really excited to see the relationships with Picard and Jack, with Riker, Picard, and Shaw. Seeing how Seven grows, because it seems like we're alluding to Seven being like a captain, or like maybe spinning off a show and having her be a captain, which I would not mind. I think she's a total badass, and that would be really fun. There was something that like lit that like old flame in me when I heard Picard say LaForge, go like do whatever, and I was like, oh, that's so weird and so cool. Like it feels like old Next Gen. I am excited for Geordi to an extent. I thought what we were going to have is one of those things where Geordi would swoop in at the last minute right before they hit the gravity wells.
I also thought that his daughter sent like an emergency SOS.
Yeah, like because they engineered some kind of communique that could travel across light years.
Yep.
I'm so glad they didn't do that. So I'm excited to see how he comes in and like to what capacity. Worf I could see again, but if he's with Raffi,
I want Worf bad. Like I really like Worf, and I want him to be.
He's new and interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great character now.
As soon as they can,
Michael Dorn divest him for a new series with just
as soon as they can divest him from Raffi's storyline, I'm back in. But what do we think about sort of what we got at the end of the episode? Jack having those weird flashes. And again, it's the red door that we heard about. So trying to at least tidy that over. Does it look like there could be some contact with the Dominion? I mean, do we have any thoughts about what that could be, Jason?
I don't think there's any idea what he could be. I mean, right now it's just, I don't know. It almost seems more like a Discovery storyline right now with Jack. Cause there's always like this weird, maybe he's not even who he thinks he is. Almost like what was that Terminator movie where the one guy was a Terminator and he didn't even know it until like the very end of the movie.
Oh, I think that was the one McGee did.
Right. Yeah. So I kind of wonder like it could be like that, which
feels very Battlestar Galactica.
Well, you need to stop being Jean-Luc Picard and pay attention to your son over there.
Yeah, he wants his iPad and I told him he can't right now. So
it's like I don't even want to watch Star Trek on it. Well, what do you think, Katie? What do you think, Katie, about Jack's little flashes and his hot flashes?
His hot flashes. His
red
hot flashes. I think it has something to do with the changelings. Clearly, he has some like terrible relationship. He screwed them over somehow, and I'm not sure how. And I'm looking forward to finding out what that storyline is. The biggest storyline that I'm really looking forward to is finding out what happened with Jason's son.
Yeah.
That's all right. He wants to buy an add-on for an Xbox game, and I'm not letting him. So
is it Fortnite? Because they just released a new season,
no,
and it's pretty cool.
I don't let him play that right now. But Roblox is bad enough.
Yeah, no, it's Grand Theft Auto 5. Yeah, that's kids. Before and by the way, Craig, precursor to the burn, referencing Discovery. I mean, I think the burn is still not like more than 500 years off at this point.
I only think that the burn happened like they went ahead 1,000 years, which would have been
and it had been going on for like 300-400 or something.
I only think it was like 100. I thought it was like 100.
Okay, so. I just knew we're not close to it, but you never know.
That's the thing too is that between, I mean, don't we all? But the timeline, especially with all these different shows, I'm like, wait, where is Lower Decks? Is Lower Decks is Next Gen style, or what era are we in? Like sometimes I wish I just had like a straight timeline of like where does this show fit into where.
Yeah, I know they could have a good timeline. I think it'll be an interesting reveal, and it makes Jack a more interesting character. That there's something sinister unbeknownst to him or something. He's at the beck and call of someone, or there's some influence on him. So we'll see how it all plays out. But each week I'm more excited for the next episode, and that is not what happened with Star Trek Picard season 2 or season 1 after the first couple. I agree. I don't disagree with Jason's point that both of the previous 2 seasons started stronger than they finished. But I had a good feeling about this season from the beginning, just because of, knowing what we were going to get. I mean, honestly, we've gotten so much more Riker than I thought we were going to get this year. And maybe it's because Jonathan Frakes is directing like every episode. So he's like, well, I'm going to be in it too.
And like, good for him, because A, he's a great director, and B, I feel like his acting has gotten miles better than where he started from.
I mean, do you want to watch him in Encounter Farpoint? He doesn't just look like Mark Hamill, So.
My wife used to watch him in The Waltons. He was like a love interest for like 3 seasons on The Waltons.
Now that I didn't know.
Well, yeah. So.
No, it's something about once he added the beard. And then the show.
Well, he's just got such a good smile. I mean, it's just you just like him when he's one of those rare guys that just flashes a smile at you, and you're happy.
No one has ever described me that way, but yes, you're right about Jonathan Frakes.
He's his character. Well, at least Riker is the lovable douchebag, and I thought nothing like completed that image more than him throwing the asteroid at the.
That was pretty cool. I'm glad you mentioned that. I forgot that I wanted to mention.
The one thing I was worried about when they said they were going to have to manually get out of the asteroid field, that we were going to get the joystick from Insurrection, that Riker was going to have to do the.
That is one of Tom Kelly's least favorite moments in all of Star Trek.
I kind of thought that was going to be like, Riker, you've done it before, and then the joystick pops up and he's
the playing, Atari style.
Right, he's playing.
Look, I think that this had all the things that you come to Star Trek for, including a lack of Raffi. But I think that the strong character development for new characters like Shaw, I think, and really the one plus, I guess, is that this series you really gotten a completely different understanding of 7 and 9, because she's decades further removed from the collective, and she's a very different person than she was on Voyager. So I think that I'm glad that they found a way to tell these stories, and I look forward to see what we're going to get next. And
also, she hasn't aged a bit. My God. She has kept that body in 7 of 9.
Oh, yeah. No, I know.
I'm like, how?
Yeah, exactly. Well,
I would love to see a
Jason.
show going forward with Shaw, 7, and Worf somehow. Jack doesn't interest me that much.
No, I mean, Jack.
Only in regards to Picard. That's all I really care about.
Yeah. Hopefully they get trapped in like a temporal displacement in the holodeck where they live like 30 years in the space of like a real time hour, so they can catch up or something, and then it'd be like, and then you could play cats in the cradle at the end of the episode. But maybe that'll be next week, and I'll be doing this show on Thursday next week. Time TBD. Find me at Christian DMZ, because I have to fit in time to see Shazam on Friday. So I believe I'll be doing this show on Thursday, possibly early Friday, but we'll find out. So just follow me at Christian DMZ. Katie, thank you so much for being on. And once you've been on, you're just going to be asked back. So be ready for that. Where can people find you?
You can find me at El Sassy Pants. The tag is right there. ELSASSYPANTS on most platforms, or El Sassy Pants with a Z at the end on TikTok. Sometimes I do funny things. Or if you are in the LA area, I am doing a very late night show at 11 p.m. next Thursday night, where I'm doing a very dumb comedy bit. So join me there.
You really sold it well. It's very dumb. It's really late at night. If you already know it's going to be raining that day, that's the other thing people in LA like to hear.
Oh yeah.
So Jason, you can't be found anywhere, but do you want to?
I'm on LinkedIn, Jason P. Blair. I'm Smith Gambrell Russell, sgrlaw.com. You got trademark copyright needs. I'm the attorney you need. All right.
And don't worry, I am going to put together a copyright law episode of the Black Cast. I really have to map it out. I want to make sure that we actually. Oh, what's that documentary you told me about? Why don't you plug that?
It's the Pez Outlaw. It's about a guy who apparently Pez licenses the characters depending on certain countries. So this guy would go to Europe and go to Eastern Europe and buy their license there, like Mickey Mouse and Marvel stuff, Pez stuff that you couldn't get in the US, and would basically smuggle it into the US. And it was legit Pez stuff, but it's not legitimately licensed in the United States.
United
States. Outlaw Pez.
It was
the Pez Outlaw. Is the
Pez Outlaw. It's really interesting.
Okay.
So check it out.
It's in my queue, but I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah.
In any case, thank you, Katie. Thank you, Jason. Thank you to everybody who almost made the show this week. But that's why I love having the revolving door, because I'm just happy to talk about Star Trek and Dominica Saxon, Stress Free K, everybody that was in there, Craig Robinson staying up late, of course, Farad Muhammad, and William Walton, and I don't want to forget anybody now. Once you say 5 names, you're like, oh, I got to say all the names.
Did you say Bill Walton was listening to our
show? Bill Walton, huge fan,
awesome.
Huge fan. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We will see you next week to talk about episode 5. But until then, live long and prosper.